All right, folks, so for this one, we're going to keep translating, and I'm also going to try to diagram some of these out with some drawings just so we can see why certain things work the way that they do. So to say it's going to be easier or anything because quantified symbols and translations are hard, but we're going to be able to get there. So when we look at number 9, what we see is we see something that's an only. You can understand these as only ifs. And an only if, as we know, represents an arrow and it represents a necessary condition. So this is going to be a little bit weird because when we translate this, what we have is we have our animals, AX, and being a dog, DX. And remember, these are categories. So big letters are categories. So dogs, animals, cats, whereas little letters, well, those are something different. That's Doug the dog or something. Wanda, Jake, Sam. Little letters represent specific things out there in the world. But for the most part, we're going to be dealing with mostly big letters. So what we see here is we see that only dogs are animals. In other words, of all the things that are animals, if it's an animal, it has to be a dog. So if we were to translate this, what we would find is the following. For all of X, if X is an animal, then that thing must be a dog. Or it's not the case that there exists an X such that X is both an animal and not a dog. So this is a little bit weird because usually we would say that only animals are dogs. In other words, you can't have something that is a dog and not an animal. So the content of this one's a little bit wonky, but that's just kind of important to be able to wrestle with. Let's go on to 10. At least one. At least one means that we can translate that as an existential X. And then we have mortal. And mortal is going to be MX. And then human is HX. So there exists at least one X such that X is both mortal and X is human. So we have an implicit and statement there. Going on to 11, what we see is we have an only if. Only if means we have that. And then this one's going to be a little bit wonky because we only have a thing. But we can understand as universal X is a logician, LX, rational, RX. So for all of X, if X is a logician, then it must be the case that they are rational. In other words, if they weren't rational, they wouldn't be able to be a logician. We can also translate this as it's not the case that there exists an X such that X is both a logician and not rational. If something weren't rational, it would not be able to be a logician. Let's go on to 12. For 12, we find all. So we're going to be talking about universal. Then we have talking about trees, that's a category. Then here we have a not statement, along with another category of animals. So the way we translate this one is for all of X, if X is a tree, then it can't be the case that that X is an animal. Or it's not the case that there exists an X such that X is both a tree and an animal. Both of these translations work. Let's keep going. So here we'll notice right off the bat that we have an and, we have a sum, and we have a sum. We also have a not. Put the not there, put the and there, and go ahead and do stuff in groups of 2. Some, there exists an X. Some, there exists an X. And then we have people are good. People are PX. Good things are GX. We have more people over here. PX and not good is negation GX. Then we want to translate it piece by piece. So some people are good. There exists some X such that X is both a person and X is good. And there exists some Y such that Y is both a person and Y is not good. So you'll notice here that I changed letters. I changed over to using Y's instead. You could have still used X. That would have been perfectly fine. Now let's go on to 14. So something, there exists some X such that it is both good and evil. That's going to be an and. We have good as a category, evil as a category. Good is GX, evil is EX. So there exists some X such that X is both good and X is evil. Now when we go on to 15, there exists, this is going to be another existential X. There exists a person who is good. So when we look at this statement, a person who is good, what we're going to see is that there's an implicit and statement in here, that there is a person and they are good. So we have the categories of person, categories of good, and we're going to just and them together. So there exists an X such that X is a person and X is good. Now going on to 16. Only blue things are sky blue. So when you see only, read it as an only if. Then we have two categories. We have blue things and we have sky blue things. So something is sky blue only if it is a blue thing. And this is talking about all sky blue things. So we're going to have a universal X. So for all of X, if X is sky blue, then it must be the case that that is blue. We could also write this as, it's not the case that there exists an X such that X is both sky blue and not blue. And we can think of it as this way. Let's say that we have, here's all the sky blue things. The sky blue things are nested within all the blue things boxed. So for all of X, let's say X is in here, if something is sky blue, then it must be blue. But that also means that we're not going to have something that is sky blue out here. That's impossible. So it's not the case that there exists an X that is sky blue, but not in the blue box. So this is going to be it for this page. On the next video, I'm going to go on to page 3, and it's going to get a little bit more complicated.